Camilla has had a very difficult few weeks, and from everything sources are saying, it's only going to get worse from here. There's a story developing inside the palace right now that honestly feels like it's been building for decades. The woman who dismantled a marriage, the woman who spent years working her way into the center of the institution, is suddenly finding herself on the outside of a financial firewall. A meeting took place recently regarding the restructuring of royal estate allocations and private allowances. Sources say it lasted less than 10 minutes. Short, precise, and according to sources, the kind of conversation someone has when they've already made the decision. Sources describe the atmosphere as entirely cold, according to sources. It was a direct clawback of funding that had quietly been redirected to non-working extensions of the family. Sources suggest that call, and the financial audit that preceded it, was the first move in something much bigger. Who actually holds the purse strings when the crown begins to tighten its belt? To understand why this is happening now, you have to look at the one person who has consistently prioritized the survival of the institution over personal comfort. Princess Anne has watched the shifting dynamics of the royal household for over 50 years. She is acting now not out of malice, but out of a fierce sense of institutional duty and legacy protection. She is the most hardworking royal, a woman who views the crown as a profound responsibility, not a vehicle for family advancement. For years, Camilla managed to secure positions, security detail privileges, and estate access for her own children and extended family. Decades of careful maneuvering allowed her to embed her personal circle into the fabric of royal life. So why now? Why after years of unchallenged expansion? Sources say the answer has two parts, and you need both of them to understand what's actually going on here. The first part comes down to the fact that Princess Anne's institutional position has fundamentally changed. Following recent reorganizations of the royal estates and internal trusts, Anne now controls significant allocations in crown estate assets and internal family funds. All of it under Anne's direct control. There's no consultation required, no approval needed from anyone else. The moment Anne took over full oversight of these specific portfolio reviews, certain names associated with Camilla's extended family stopped appearing in the discretionary financial records. No public dispute, no statement, just gone. That decision sent a message that didn't need any translation. Royal commentators picked up on it immediately and noted it was causing significant ripples inside the palace. The family was left fuming behind closed doors. Sources suggest Prince William approved completely. The second part is anchored to a deeper historical tragedy. August 31st, 1997 will soon be 30 years since the tragedy happened in Paris. 30 years since. William had to walk behind his mother's coffin in front of the entire world. He's now 43, a husband and a father. And in nearly 3 decades of public life, he has never once made a direct statement connecting his feelings about Camilla to his feelings about what his mother went through. His actions have been making that statement consistently for years. Sources say William reached a point where he was done allowing institutional loyalty to override private conviction. And Anne has access to something that is now making certain people inside Buckingham Palace genuinely nervous. There is a room at Windsor Castle called the Royal Archives. No tourists, no documentary crews, no public access. What it contains is the unfiltered, unedited, privately recorded history of the British royal family. Letters, diaries, internal correspondence, the written record of what was actually happening inside the institution during the most turbulent decades. What exactly is in those archives that certain people allegedly do not want surfacing right now? The broad strokes are already public knowledge. The telephone transcripts, the public separation, the televised confessions. All of that is documented, analyzed, and debated. What sources suggest is in those archives goes beyond the broad strokes. It's the specificity, the private, contemporaneous written record of who knew what, when they knew it, who facilitated what, and how financial and logistical resources were deployed during those years. Camilla's situation is deteriorating rapidly. Anne has been using her financial control with a precision that people inside Camilla's circle are only now fully appreciating. Access to crown events, proximity to official royal occasions, and invitations that had previously been extended to members of Camilla's wider circle have been quietly withdrawn. Appearances where Camilla's family members had expected to be present have been restructured without explanation. Nothing that generates a headline on its own. Everything that adds up to something unmistakable when you step back and look at the full picture. When Camilla walked into Westminster Abbey for the coronation wearing her modified crown, it was a statement, a carefully chosen signal of permanent arrival. But that crown will one day sit on another head when the monarchy transitions. When that happens, the symbolic transfer will be so total and so unmistakable that everything Camilla's moment represented will effectively be overwritten. When Queen Elizabeth died, the late ruler held hundreds of royal patronages. The redistribution of those patronages among working royals has been ongoing since 2022, sources suggest. Anne has allegedly been involved in certain patronage decisions in ways that have quietly shaped that redistribution, ensuring the focus remains strictly on the bloodline royals. Camilla's personal situation reflects this pressure. Years ago, she kept Mill House as a private retreat. It was a property that stood separate from the crown estate. People do not seek refuge or tighten their personal boundaries casually. They do not worry about the one place that belongs entirely to them unless something has shifted fundamentally in how they see their own future. Right now, Camilla moves through multiple royal residences as a matter of course. That picture changes completely when the inevitable transition happens. Properties pass to William. Buckingham Palace becomes William's primary residence. Sources suggest her likely future arrangements consist of limited access to specific residences, valued at a fraction of the sovereign empire. Significant assets by any normal measure, completely inadequate as a substitute for the position she currently occupies. She would go from queen consort with the full weight of the monarchy behind her to a secondary role, living in residences at the discretion of a king who grew up watching what she did to his mother. The family network is being dismantled. Extended family members are gone from the discretionary payroll. Camilla's family's access to royal spaces is allegedly finished. The family's broader proximity to crown events is quietly narrowing. Sources suggest Anne is dismantling it piece by piece with a patience and thoroughness that speaks to genuine long-term intent rather than temporary frustration. A complicating factor remains. Historical financial links and social associations appear in older documentation. While there is no evidence of criminal wrongdoing, the association is real and documented. Sources suggest the future king has made his position completely clear. Distance the family from these associations publicly and permanently, or accept the consequences. Camilla has not fully complied. She views cutting ties with her own blood as both personally impossible and fundamentally unfair. The younger generation views her continued push for her family's inclusion as evidence of exactly the kind of judgment failure that justifies their concerns. King Charles made a phone call to William and Anne months ago that sources describe as one of the most difficult conversations between the family members in decades. Not angry, not accusatory, quiet and pained. He is 77 years old. He was diagnosed with cancer and has maintained public duties with genuine discipline. But discipline is not the same as strength. He faces an impossible choice. Protecting Camilla's family would mean telling Anne to restore access and privileges. Anne would not comply, and the king knows it. It would mean telling William to stop, and William would not comply, and the king knows that too. He is the man who conducted the affair that Diana described in terms of profound personal devastation. He is the reason that grief exists. How do you argue against your son's grief over his mother when you are the reason that grief exists in the first place? There's a version of this story that looks like revenge. Anne and William systematically dismantling everything Camilla built as payback for what she did to Diana, and there's another version that looks like something more considered and more lasting than revenge. Sources suggest the second version is closer to the truth. Simple revenge would look like Camilla publicly humiliated, stripped of everything in one dramatic moment. That is not what sources describe Anne and William as building. Think about what Diana actually stood for, not the fairy tale image, but the real substance of what she did. She touched AIDS patients when the establishment was still treating the disease as something shameful. She walked through active minefields to make a political point about weapons killing civilians. She sat with homeless people and looked them in the eye and treated them as fully human in a way that senior royals simply were not supposed to do. She did all of this against the active resistance of an institution that found her emotional directness threatening and her popularity destabilizing. She was right about all of it. the institution was wrong. Now her son is preparing to run the institution, supported by his aunt's fierce protectiveness of the core line. Sources suggest William's modernization agenda is not simply good management practice. It is Diana expressed institutionally. The emotional intelligence she was told was inappropriate. The public accountability she was told was dangerous. The genuine human connection she was told was beneath the dignity of a senior royal. All of it allegedly being built into the architecture of the monarchy William is constructing. Princess Anne's contribution runs parallel. Decades of quiet, genuinely impactful work that represents a living argument against performative royalty. The exact argument Diana made and paid everything to make? Here's what sources suggest Camilla is slowly and painfully coming to understand. She won the battle. She got the man. She got the title. She got the coronation, the tiara, and the seat beside the king. But the war was never about Charles. It was about Diana and what Diana represented. And whether the institution Diana tried to change would eventually become something worthy of the price she paid. William and Anne are allegedly building that institution now, not for revenge, but for legacy. And Camilla has no counter-strategy for that. You cannot argue against a legacy. You cannot litigate grief. You cannot outmaneuver a son who watched his mother die and spent decades deciding quietly and deliberately what to do about it. Diana never got to see what this monarchy could become. She got a Paris tunnel, 2 boys without a mother, and a family that barely lowered its flag. But sources suggest something is happening inside that palace right now that she never lived to see. Her son and her sister-in-law moving together, quietly and permanently. Reshaping everything Camilla built into something Diana would have recognized as hers. Not revenge, something better than revenge. Legacy. And that, more than any property dispute or payroll decision or symbolic tiara, is what sources describe as Camilla's darkest reality in decades.